So, dear ladies and gentlemen, a big welcome to the 6th Grow, Learn, Connect webinar. My name is Anna Peko, and I'm the manager of the Grow, Learn, Connect platform. And today, as always, I would like to start with just a couple of reminders. So first off, I would like to say that this session is being recorded, and the recording will be shared with you sometime next week. Now, as I said, when you are sending messages in chat, please make sure to send them to everyone and not just to participants or to panelists, so that everyone can see your messages. And I'm pretty sure that everyone has already located that chat icon, which is in the bottom right corner of your screen. Now, if you will close the chat, you will be able to see the icon, which is called the feedback icon. So when you click on that feedback icon, and I'm showing it right now on my slide, you will be able to see such options as yes, no, too fast, too slow, etc. So please take a moment to locate that icon as well. You will be using it today during the webinar. And of course, please participate. We will be very grateful if you participate, even though we don't open mics during the presentation itself, but we may open your mics in the Q&A session. Now, I would like to make a very quick announcement about our upcoming webinars. So for our next webinar, we decided to move away from the so popular topic of online training delivery. And so on March 18th, we will welcome Sandra Hinacho. She will be joining us from Nigeria, and she will talk about how to make coaching work. This webinar will be delivered in English. Now in April, and the date is still to be determined, we will also welcome Merdi Shahed, our French-speaking master trainer. She will also talk about coaching techniques, but this time in French. And these two webinars are meant to be different. So if you speak both English and French, you're more than welcome to join both of these webinars. I'm pretty sure that you will learn something from both of these trainers. And now I would like to very quickly introduce our presenter today and our special guests. So I will start with Hasib. Hi, Hasib. Hasib has been with the World Bank Group since 2003, and in most recent years, he has been advancing IFC's digital finance, advisory services, and business development for technology sectors. Now, Graham Harris, he's my colleague and a member of the Grow, Learn, Connect team, specializes in micro and small entrepreneurship development, capacity building, supply chain management. Graham is leading IFC's financial institutions Group local advisory services program in Asia, and currently he is based in Singapore. And finally, our presenter today is Elena Avery. Hi, Elena. Thank you so much for joining us, for doing this for us. So Elena has substantial experience in designing, delivering, and assessing training programs for MSMEs, for banking institutions, for microfinance institutions, and for non-governmental organizations. Elena is a certified online designer and facilitator. She is the IFC LPI assessor. She's also a Kirkpatrick certified professional. She's the IFC certified master trainer. And of course, she is also a signatory to the GLC principles for learning. Elena, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And thank you, Anna, very much for a nice introduction. And let me switch now to my presentation. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. I'm very, very happy to welcome everybody today. And thank you for your interest towards this topic. And our topic today is how to collaborate with content experts. So Anna already introduced me, and just want to remind some ground rules. Regardless, we have pretty good amount of people today. I hope this webinar will be interactive. I prepared some questions for you, and please be ready to interact and participate. Unfortunately, we cannot see each other's eyes and faces, but we still can express some emotions and feelings. So please feel free to use emoticons. And also, I will ask some questions. I've prepared some questions for you. So let's agree that green tick or green check is yes, means yes, and the red cross means no. I hope you will share your opinions and comments today. Please use chat box for that. And of course, if you have questions, please write them in the chat box. And of course, I and my honored guests, and Anna will do the best to address all questions. And also, I plan to use whiteboard today, so it will be pretty interactive webinar. And let's try right now how to use the whiteboard. So what I suggest, look at this slide. I put many different pictures of different types of climate zones and natures. And please use the annotation, which you can find on your left side of your screen. So if you find this annotation bar, click on the pointer, which is the first icon on the top. If you click on this pointer, then you can find the picture that represents your nature in the best way, something that surrounds you, even if you live in the big city, in megapolis maybe, but anyhow, something that is around you. I was trying to find as many pictures as possible, and it's really interesting to see where are you living. So, wow. Oh my gosh, I would love to be at the ocean right now. Escape from my cold winter. Okay, some jungles. Well, I don't know whether I found the right pictures, maybe not for everybody. Okay, I see Natalia Elena in a cold winter as well. Okay, great. Well, anyhow, we know how to use this whiteboard because we will be using it later as well. So thank you very much for sharing with me where are you from. Okay, now when we know where you're from and approximately see these beautiful types of nature where you live, now I would like to know a little bit who you are, what are you doing in terms of the training development. Are you a trainer, or you are an instructional designer, or maybe you are working just as a manager or coordinator of the training in the training team, or maybe you are a subject matter expert, because we will be talking about collaboration with these people today. So for this purpose, I will open a simple poll now, and please choose as many answers as you want. So the poll is open now. So you can click on the roles that you perform, and maybe you perform different roles now simultaneously. You are instructional designer and you are delivering trainings as well, or maybe you work as a content expert as well. Okay, we will wait a couple seconds so we can see the results. Okay, so we have 40%, more than 40% of trainers so far. Not everybody answered, but we have the majority are trainers. We have some instructional designers, content experts. Excellent. So I hope that when we will be talking about how in the best way to collaborate with content experts, actually content experts will give their comments. And we also have people who are training managers and coordinators. Okay, so I give you a couple more seconds and then we can close the poll. Okay, so more than half of our audience is perform the trainer roles. And we have instructional designers, 22%, and we have 24% of content experts. 20 2 and 25 respectfully training managers and training coordinators, and also just somebody that were not under any of these categories. So 19% people who answered other, and 26% of our attendees didn't give any answer for some reason. So, okay, thank you very much for sharing this, and I'm closing the poll now. So, while our discussion today, I really expect your comments and your opinions on what we will be discussing. And it was nice to know, to understand the kind of profile of our audience today. Okay, so today's conversation, I want to start with quotation. But before I jump into the content, I'm going to stop the video so you will not be distracting from it, and I want you fully to concentrate on the presentation. So today's conversation, I want to start with this quotation. You can read this quotation, and from Albert Einstein. But I think that this quotation perfectly can be applied for our professional life, because our professional life is like riding a bicycle, and in order to keep your balance, you really must keep moving. And of course, everybody knows what happened last year and how pandemic and COVID-19 affected all industries, actually, of the economy, and of course, industry of our training world. And you know that many classes became empty, and many training providers started to repurpose the classroom trainings, face-to-face trainings, into virtual, into online trainings. And I'm sure that this process will be continuing this year in 2021. And this is not an easy process, but we have to keep moving in order to stay alive and to keep our balance. As instructional designer, I have been working with many subject matter experts since May of 2020. And we were converting classroom training to online. And I accumulated a lot of experience and some lessons learned. And as you might know, it is much better to learn from the mistakes of others. So today I'm going to share with you not only some typical mistakes that training professionals, instructional designers, and content experts and other members of training development team can make in working with content experts, so you can avoid them, but also several recommendations on how to make the process of collaboration smooth, effective, and, if you will, less painful for all members of the team. So in this respect, today, our objectives and points of discussions. So we will discuss some challenges that instructional designers face in collaboration with subject matter experts. And if we know challenges, we might be better prepared to overcome them. I will also share some typical mistakes training development teams make that you can avoid them. And finally, after the end of this webinar, you will be able to identify simple 4-step process how to build effective team with content experts. Well, first of all, let me share this. I was very happy when I'm member of the training development team and I have a content experts in this team. Well, first of all, they are just knowledge tanks. They accumulated not just theoretical information about in the field, in their field, but also they have a lot of practical experience. They know the best practices of the industries, and the examples they can give great examples from their real life, from the real business. Think about that. Who can be the better than them when you need to create a case study, for instance, or when you need to create tests? And in the ideal world, they provide the material and you craft it to create effective and meaningful e-learning experience together. So this is the ideal situation. However, we do not live in the ideal world, and think about that. Do you think that there are some challenges we as instructional designers or trainers we might face when we collaborate with subject matter experts in the process of the development training or converting training into the from classroom to virtual? And now I would like to ask you, let's try that. Give me please a green tick if you agree that yes, there are challenges in working with subject matter experts. Please give me a green tick or green check. Use your icons. To demonstrate that you agree that there are some challenges. No, I cannot. Okay, I see the pointers. So it means, I hope it means yes, you have them, because I don't see the icons now, the emoticons.
And the best way to say yes would be to find the feedback icon, which is just right above the chat box. So once you open that feedback icon, it will open a few options for you, and one of those options is yes.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, I see that, but I don't see the answers of participants. So, okay. But anyhow, thank you for your green checks on this slide. So, okay, if you say yes, my next question will be, can you give me the examples of these challenges? And now please use the chat box. So please write the examples. What kind of examples? What kind of challenges you can give as an example? And please, if you have your own experience, please use your experience. But if you don't have your experience, just use your intuition, use your imagination. So, leading people to a change, accessing the time, limited knowledge in the subject. Yes, understanding each other. Okay, I started from the end actually, but subject matter experts want to share too many things while time is limited. Yes, absolutely, I agree. They not wanting to delivery methods, they fully in the subject, and they expect everybody else to be the same. Okay, it goes so quickly. Content can be too academic, but not practical. Thank you. Lack understanding of the aim of designers. I agree with everything you are writing now. Lack understanding, level of lack understanding of the aim, exactly, and they feel they know better. Well, maybe they are know better. That could be the case. Yeah, understanding target group and fine tuning. Yes, thank you so much. Yes, exactly. I agree with everything you say, and Actually, on the next slides, I put the challenges that I faced. This is my experience, and there are many, but I try to put them under the 4 categories. So the category number 1 says, I know how to do it. And yes, you mentioned something like that. And I agree that their status and experience do not let them recognize that being an expert in this subject does not mean you know how to teach it, how to transfer this knowledge. Education and substantial knowledge and experience do not mean by definition that people are able to teach or transfer this knowledge to others. However, so when we as instructional designers explain something and tell how to do things for better trainings, sometimes they are not accepting the ideas. And our problem is that we need to be so convincing enough to prove that our ideas come from the best practices and in the training industry. The category number 2 goes under the title, There is no need for change, it worked before. And yes, I agree, it maybe worked before, and maybe they did the training before and participants were happy, and even there were no compliance, and maybe even the evaluation, the scores were pretty high. However, it does not mean that it can be better, that we can do something to make it even better now. And of course, not everything that happened and was okay in the classroom will be okay in the virtual classroom. So again and again, we sometimes there is a challenge to explain that even repurposing the ready training material which worked in the classroom needs a lot of changes and adaptation. Number 3 goes under the title, All content is very important. And I think somebody mentioned this, but again, their best knowledge and many years of their experience make it difficult to them to accept that really maybe not all content is equally important. And sometimes we have to limit ourselves into delivering so much content, so extended. And perhaps even if the content is important, it can be delivered in the different ways, not in the same way. So again, we need to deliver the message that we have to combine maybe online and self-paced offline learning. So really, I was struggling sometimes with the purpose to limit the amount of content that respected content experts were trying to put on the slides and deliver during the learning event. And number 4 this challenge goes under the title, What's wrong with these slides? This is the separate story. And of course, you can see that these are the examples of very poorly developed, designed slides. And again, sometimes it's a challenge for me to explain that what worked before in the classroom will not work for online training. And of course, you can see these examples where too much text. Slides are very heavy, very busy, and not right colors, bad images, and simply during online event, you just simply cannot read them. But of course, I understand that content experts invested so much time in these existing presentations that sometimes it's a challenge to convince them to do these changes. So in this respect, I was thinking, okay, I'm an expert in training design, I'm instructional designer, so I know how to do that. Subject matter experts, they know the the subject, they know the content, and it probably will be very easy. What I need to do, I need just to explain these rules. However, I was pretty naive, thinking that if the training expert explains the basic training design rules and requirements, then content expert will instantly agree on them, and work will go smoothly and rapidly. And this is how it probably will happen in the ideal world, but we are not living in this ideal world. And I needed to find a way how to work effectively in this team. So I found my way, and I'm going to introduce a simple 4-step process of creating an effective training development team with subject matter experts. I came to this through some trials, challenges, and mistakes, but this was my way, and it was absolutely unforgettable experience. So let me introduce the step number 1. I'm sure that successful communication is the key to success in any team. The successful communication is the ground, the basis for any collaboration. And communication starts with understanding each other. So we just discussed our challenges. When I say our, the challenges of instructional designers that face while collaboration with content experts. But think about that. Maybe they also have some issues. Maybe they also have some challenges in this not easy process of training development. So how do you think? What are the challenges to subject matter experts? And again, if you have some ideas from your experience, or just you can again use your imagination or intuition and put some ideas into the chat. Please do that. Yeah, they have no time. Yes, I agree. They are busy with other things and they don't have enough time to learn things that we want them to know. Technology challenges. Yeah, of course, it's not their business. Yeah, matching the content. They might be bored, overloaded with different other things to do. Yeah, they don't know their client. Sometimes they don't know for whom this training is. Yeah, they don't understand instructional design. Exactly. Wasting time, I don't know what does this mean, but maybe they don't want to waste time redoing things, understanding target audience. Exactly. Yeah, feeling that they have to do as they did it before. Yeah, sometimes lack of assessment, makes it difficult for them to deliver the right content. Yeah, people used to do things that they used to do before. Yeah, they are not ready for changes. Yeah, no patient. Yes, exactly. Thank you very much for sharing your ideas. And in fact, we all people, we all human beings, they have actually the same challenges that we have if we really are not in the content, if we don't understand the subject and the requirements of the industry. But you know what? I'm happy that today we have a very honored guest, Hasib Ahmed. And I think the best way is not to sing for them, but just to ask Hasib exactly, because he is a great representative of this subject matter expert cohort. And I have been working with Hasib, and that was really great experience for me. So I would like now to invite Hasib to this conversation and ask him several questions. So Hasib, thank you very much. Thank you very much for being here with us. And since we have this slide now with the list of some challenges to subject matter experts, I want to go very quickly through these examples and talking about the number one, the formulation of objectives. Could you answer what was new for you when you needed to formulate the objectives for the training when we were working on repurposing the training, classroom training to online?
Thank you, Elena. And first of all, let me do a quick preamble and convey a couple thoughts to the entire audience. It is a privilege to be on your panel. And the feeling of having had good interaction is very much mutual. I really learned a lot from you. I'll also say you've got a very perceptive audience. Reading those comments, I wanted to actually hide under the table because they were describing so many of my proclivities that take away from being able to present things effectively. So I think we have today a quorum that's very attuned to the issues that we're discussing. And coming back to these questions of yours, the first one, objectives. In general, objectives are always, they're the first step. And as in any program management, in any program that you manage, that's you try to start out well by defining things well. So here the challenges were, you're going from the classroom settings you described. There's an interactive session. There are people together. From that to the small screens and possibly limited attention spans, it's difficult to figure out what exactly you can expect to get out of this training for these people. And you were actually very proactive with me in changing some of my language also. I would put down things like, you will know this after this session. And you would say that is very vague. So in that regard, we change it to you will be able to define. So, we did simplify things, but in general, any SME standing there will, first of all, say, yes, objectives are important. And they are the first point and the first step in which you work with management to define what will be delivered and then how it's delivered, the whole technical aspect. In this setting of remote learning, that's a different issue. There are these matters for the SME to consider. So what is realistic in terms of what can be conveyed in these sessions? That was a challenge for me.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Well, then I remember we work a lot about the developing a special section for the introduction and a closure of the sessions. And what challenges did you face when it came to this design of this part of the training?
So here again, I was reading the chat as people were typing in, and there were some comments on how SMEs think everything is important. So when you design introductions and closures, in that you have to actually pick out key points. You have to come up with a concise sort of listing of what is to be conveyed and what they're going to get from the session. So on the objectives and agenda, we talked about objectives already. Agenda, again, you instead of having a big laundry list of 12, 15 items, you're trying to come up with these headers that have that represent the entire spectrum of learning in what would essentially be bullet points, short descriptions. That requires some thought, and then on the session wrap-ups also, when you do the close-ups, recaps are often, again, going back and trying to figure out what was the most important thing to highlight out of what you said. Or can you, in these 4 or 5 line listings, capture the essence of what was conveyed? So that is a challenge, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Well, then, what was the most difficult in designing the interactions and activities when we came to this stage?
So here, again, going back to the difference, and here I'm not talking about challenges specific to this distance learning. In general, in any learning environment, all of these aspects you mentioned are challenges or potential challenges at least. Then you figure out strategies to overcome those. And so here, in the case of remote learning and in this distance learning environment, the first thing is, you don't have this tightly controlled sort of group. Like right now, I'm seeing that we have 96 participants on this chat. In a classroom, you'll never have that in a training setting, unless it's a big lecture hall at a major university. That's not what we do normally. So a very broad span of experience, of skills. And then the most crucial issue, time. So when you ask them let me start with the end of the session, the activities post-session, how much can you give them as assignments? Do they have time? In that regard, it's a guess. I mean, you'll have conflicting messages. These are busy people. Don't treat them like college students who are going to go spend all-nighters. Others say, don't make it so light that they forget everything that was talked about on the course. So the same kind of thing applies to interactions in the session too. You want to make sure that they don't fall asleep. It can happen. I mean, some of this stuff is dry. You presume that they'd be very interested, and that's why they signed up. Sometimes they don't sign up. They are signed up by somebody. So, having these things like, you've asked us to check off boxes. You've asked us to type in the chat box. Mm-hmm. Those are things required to keep them engaged, and those are interactions. And I think figuring out where to have these, I was going 15 minutes without having one, and you were very firm about that. You had me break it down, so we had much more frequent interaction. Yeah. In my case, I was not going to do that without this, so it was a challenge.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I have few questions, and these are other challenges that I observed other content experts faced. So was it unexpected additional work for you when you were requested to restructure your existing PowerPoint presentation in a different separate sessions?
Oh, yes. So indeed, in the specific case where you and I last collaborated, there was a change, and that presumably was because at the beginning when this program was started, nobody really knew the extent of COVID and travel restrictions and then how exactly it would be conducted. So the possibility was there that you could actually be standing in a room with attendees and a much smaller group that would be undergoing your training. So any work that comes up after the initial design and build, and here I'm talking IT terms, I guess, is absolutely, it's, any project manager will tell you that you're going to change control then. So yeah, it's additional, and there are challenges. Sometimes it's necessary. You can overcome them, but my one favorite statement, a very simple one that I make is well begun is half done. So, before you have to keep going back and reworking things, you should try to sit down and figure out in advance how this will be done. It's much easier than having to go back and rework things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. Coming to the very painful issue, what was the most annoying and problematic in redesigning slides, tables, schemes, for the purpose of online consuming?
So here, Elena, I ended up following your lead, but I was so resentful of your instructions to have the messages simple enough to be able to capture the attention of the audience in this format. Of course, I did not understand anything about this mode of learning. So my nature and my tendency also, and I think most SMEs are like that, would be to try to have quite a bit of information in one place. I mean, you have more on a slide so they can see the bigger picture and see the flow. And here we were having to have it spread across different slides and even tables. Those would be broken down. So I understood perfectly the need for it. I fully agreed with you. I ended up doing that, but it was a bit of work. And initially I was quite resistant. My thinking was these are intelligent people out there, not kindergartners, so they should be able to follow it. But the reality is, even I, sitting at this, following this intently, I'm sure I did not get everything that was discussed today. Sure, I won't remember everything. So yes, it was difficult to make that adjustment towards being in sync with somebody like you who knows how this training works best in terms of comprehension and in results. In my case, I want to throw everything I know out there and hope some of it sticks, or the relevant parts that people want to pick up stick. So that was the issue there.
Yeah, I understand. And again, it's so important that we understand these challenges that our respected subject matter experts face. Well, we have another guest today, Graham, if you want to add something to that. Please.
Yeah, I think thanks, Elena, Haseeb, and I agree. It's very interesting. I think just to add briefly, I think there's an innate tension between the traditional approaches and these adoption of new practices, especially as needed to online, that you're kind of both drawing on. And I think firstly, Elena, I wanted to kind of build on a point that you made about needing to be convincing as an instructional designer. And I think we've primarily talked about the subject matter expert and the instructional designer, but I think it's also very important to note that there is a third person in this bed, the business people. So you also need to be to convince and to have support from the business, right? And I think also to recognize that there may be multiple different stakeholders within the business that may have different viewpoints, or more traditional viewpoints on how training should be conducted, or greater understanding of the benefits of doing online. So I think that's the first kind of key point that I'd want to make, that we need to also think beyond the SME and the instructional designer to who are the stakeholders that we're dealing with in the business. And then secondly, just to kind of build on a point that Haseeb had made around doing things in advance. And in some sense, I have forgotten that when this particular program was initiated, things were a lot more normal. And so actually, the shift to needing to work online kind of came during the process of development of this course. But I think there's a very kind of important thing that Haseeb brought up, which is around like avoiding additional work and doing things right the first time. I think in this particular situation, there was a focus on initially like developing content, and there was somewhat a resistance to making sure that everything was done right in terms of adapting the content the first time, incorporating an understanding of the need to incorporate interaction initially, and so on. And that then did necessitate some additional rework on behalf of again, all of those stakeholders. So I think the experts feel that extra work, but it's also extra work in terms of the instructional designer, and it's also additional work and stress in terms of the business stakeholders as well, who want to ensure that the training program is delivered to the best as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. And really, your point about the putting everybody and agreed with everybody, and it's so important, because I just sometimes have felt like I have responsibility, but I don't have authority enough, and just content experts are just not following. So in this respect, really, we need sometimes the support of management and understanding of all stakeholders. Thank you for bringing this point. Okay, so now if you recollect our challenges, I mean, when I say the challenges that instructional designers face, and challenges that content experts face, it looks like it's total non-understanding. Sometimes I think that we are coming from different planets and we do not speak the same language. But is it possible to build a successful team if members are not using a common language? Well, not, of course not. So the next step is to find a common language. So when you understand each other, you understand the challenges. Let's speak together. Let's use the common language. Well, in our content, the common language means common approach to training development, to seeing some points in training development. And again, I'm talking about the case when you have to repurpose, convert the classroom training to online. And now I will give you several examples, like statements, and I will ask you to decide whether this statement is right or wrong in your mind. So when I show you the statement, please just put a green check or a red cross. So you will indicate whether you agree with this statement or not. So approach number 1, develop content first, then customize to virtual delivery tools. How about that? What do you think about that? So again, I cannot see the feedback. Disagree. Okay, somebody is ready. Okay, Caroline, disagree. Somebody says yes, disagree. Okay, there are different opinions. Some people agree, some people are disagree. Okay, let me show you my attitude towards that. In my mind, it's not right approach. It can work, but this is the issue. Then later we will spend much more time for redoing things. So in my mind, the right approach is first, show the benefits and challenges of virtual delivery. Show to your content experts how it works. What does not work? What was normal for the face-to-face will not be normal for online. So learn the functionalities, learn the interaction tools first, and then tailor content exploiting the platform's technology. This is how you can save really a lot of time, because otherwise you will be spending time later repurposing, redoing your content. Okay, now, number 2, let's put together what we have, then decide what learners need. How about that? Disagree? Yes, no way, no, disagree. Okay, wrong. Thank you, dear participants, for sharing your ideas. Well, here, actually, of course, here is some trap. Of course, we can reword this and decide and say, okay, let's decide what learners need, and then we will put together and adjust our content accordingly, right? But I would say, of course, this is not right, but I would like to focus your attention even not on the question, what do they need, but what do learners need to do? Because we are talking about some actions or what kind of behavior or new skills we want to develop that they will be doing later. So this is about thinking what kind of skills or actions or behavior we want to form with the help of this learning. So, and then the content will be much easier to tailor the content to this, to the purpose of what they want to do, what they need to do. Okay, thank you. The number 3, well, it would be easy, I guess. 1-day classroom training equals 4 2-hour online sessions. If we don't have enough time, we go faster. How about that? Okay. No. Of course not. Reduce content. No. Okay, I see that people that you are disagree. Yes, classroom time can take some more time than virtual one. Agree, because we have different interesting virtual tools for make the classroom the online learning shorter. Okay, but this is definitely not right approach because it's not that easy calculation. This is not simple calculation. That classroom hours are not equal to online hours. So first we need to define what we are going to deliver. What is it about knowledge, skills, or maybe we need to form or change the attitudes of learners. And then only after that, when we define what is the focus of the content, then we can decide on the content and we can use the blended online and offline learning. And by this, we really can save some time. So definitely we have to understand what is the what are we delivering, and then plan the time according to our decisions on blended learning. And finally, number 4, agree on the visual standards for slides, then develop PowerPoint presentation. What do you think? Yes. Answers are yes. You agree? Some people say no, but majority say yes. Some no. Actually, you know what? How about that? Maybe this is better. Use existing PowerPoint presentation, then reformat slides. Well, in fact, there is nothing wrong with using the existing slides if the content is still actual. It's a crime not to use them if they are okay. However, the visual standards for online presentations really dramatically differ from those that we use for the classroom. So that was tricky. I wanted to trick you a little bit. So yes, this first approach is absolutely right. So first, again, in order to save time, we need first to agree on the visual standards. We need to explain content experts what are the requirements, what are the things that absolutely are not acceptable, and then start to develop or repurpose the existing presentation for the purpose of online. Well, thank you for your comments. And now, again, I would like to offer the floor to our respected experts. So, Graham or Hasib, if you want to add something here about this finding the common language with subject matter experts.
I'll go first, and I'll say, after listening to Graham, he's so eloquent. I should always yield the floor to him. So I'll make it short and then let him weigh in, because I think he's also handling quite a few of these. I just went through one. So, I mean, it's not possible to really disagree with anything you said there. It's almost common sense, which experience tells us is not all that common, really. So we do have, SMEs do have their blind spots, and sometimes the inability to move away from a preset notion of how something is done, because they've been doing it 20, 30, in my case, longer. I'm dating myself there, years of their life. So there's that resistance, but in general, everything you've talked about on the interactive nature of design, looking forward and making sure from the very beginning to incorporate these design elements in how you structure your training session. I think that's important. And I'll let Graham weigh in on this next.
Thank you. Thank you for your opinion.
Thanks, Hasib. And I think you're very right in saying it's common sense, but I think this is the learning process for everybody, right? I think especially as we're again kind of doing things more online, we're all learning like new best practices about how to do this. And I think first of all, I completely agree. I think 2 hours is like a great time limit, and it's best not to go through past that time limit, for both the sanity of the person delivering the training to a blank screen, plus the participants who have to kind of listen and partake. But I did want to add, I think we also have to be a little bit pragmatic in terms of like adoption of some of these best practices. And I think, my view is that a highly qualified online facilitator can do everything that you articulated, Elena, perfectly in terms of, developing content and, thinking about objectives and incorporating interaction early on and so on. But again, it is a learning process. And I think one of the big kind of lessons that we have from delivering this training program with multiple experts is that all experts are different, right? And their level of expertise in facilitation is very different, full stop, even face-to-face facilitation, and their level of kind of comfort in adopting kind of new approaches to online facilitation, and or their level of kind of flexibility and or willingness to do that is like very variable. And I think you need to also understand upfront both the level of experience and the level of flexibility or willingness of the expert to adopt new approaches. Because if you force some of these things on somebody that is not able to kind of uptake that in a reasonable period of time, it also doesn't result in an optimal training program.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. Agree with you. And it's good to have these lessons learned and this thing that we can do differently next time. So that's why we are discussing this today. Well, thank you for your opinions, and let's look at our four-step process. So when we understand each other and then we define our common language, the next step is presenting some guidelines to content experts and agree on them. And here I want to underline the word agree on them, because, it's not only about telling them, okay, you need to do this and this, but it's very important if they endorse, if they understand the necessity of these guidelines and standards, requirements for online trainings, and follow them. This is very important. So present and agree and make sure they endorse them. So now, what do you think? What should guidelines include? I would like to again to ask for your comments and opinions, and maybe we can use this whiteboard so you can type right in this book guidelines content. What do you think will be the content? And just to give you some hint, think about their challenges. Because we discussed their challenges, it's quite a long list. And so what really, before we start the work of repurposing the face-to-face training to online, what we need to present them? What kind of guidelines, rules, requirements? Yeah, I agree that AD process is very important, and they need to understand this process and what stays behind, and simple and standard, and it's so small font. If you go to the edit button at the top of the WebEx event panel and find the font size, you can make your font bigger, and it will be easier for us to read if you are using a whiteboard. So under the edit button, you can find font and make this font like maybe 50, 40. So it will be much easier to type, to read, I mean. Because unfortunately, I cannot read, the font is too small. Language standards, okay, I absolutely agree.
Let me see if I can read it. Simple,
Okay.
straightforward. Training content must match the target. Scope and audience needs to be established. Include more relevant examples.
Yeah, absolutely.
There are also some comments, and there are also some comments in chat.
I see. Design activities, font disabled, design activities. Yes. Oh, the people are writing that the font is gray. This is inactive button. Okay, but anyhow, you can use the chat box, presentation templates, time limits, rules. Absolutely, thank you. Yes, how to design the breakout sessions, activities, and so on. Exactly, I agree. Continuous consultation, depth. Yes, how depth the content should be. And of course, rules, standards, requirements, and so on. Yes, what the set of PowerPoint presentations, assessment methods, times. Yeah, you can. This list can be very long. Now, when it comes to when we start to work, sometimes we are afraid to overload content experts with the so huge amount of requirements and rules and things that they need to learn. And you remember one of the challenges there, they don't have time, and sometimes they don't have desire. So I want to present you this example of guidelines that I developed, and you will be able to download it from the website, GLC website. So this is just an example. It should not be limited to my articles to these points, because really this picture can be much wider. But at least I can recommend the minimum that you need to present as rules or standards. So first of all, it's about training package content. Just to explain that the training content is not only the trainings that, it's not only the presentation, PowerPoint presentation. It's everything about pre-course activities and session plans and different sets of slides and different materials, everything that should support the training, especially if you are using blended learning, and participants will not only participate in online events, but also if you plan any activities in between sessions, handouts, and so on. Then, of course, requirements for slides. Absolutely, because really this is very painful point. So everything about how the slides should be designed. And again, because it's a pity later to spend more time on redoing things if you can set up these rules and requirements beforehand and really save the time later. Then, of course, interaction format. And you mentioned that because, again, let's start with the end in mind. So when content experts are putting information and content into the slides, for example, or any other training materials, they have to keep in mind what kind of interactions they will use during the live sessions. And again, it's good to have this in mind while developing the content. Formulating of objectives. This is really, again and again, I found that the excellent content starts right with the content, no introduction, no closure, and no formulated objectives. And when I was asking content experts, okay, let's formulate the objectives. Well, what will be the objective of this session, for example? Sometimes they were kind of, what are you asking about? It's about, yes, we want them to learn about credit process. Yes, but again, we know that this is very wide and very, very wide approach, and we need to go to be more focused, and we need to explain the rules for objectives, how they have to formulate them in a right way. And finally, the description of the design process. And when I'm talking about the design process, so just to give them the good picture, the high-level picture that where you start, that you start with this, formulation of objectives, and then you shape appropriate learning activities in order to support these objectives, structure, logical flow, and so on and so on. Okay, so but I agree that, and you gave your examples, and there could be much more points in this guide, but it's really good to present this guide before you start working. And again, I want to underline to ensure their agreement with you on that. Okay, and then finally, the step number 4. Probably I will not surprise you if I say that will be a development of a teamwork plan. So really, it's probably in this respected audience, there is no need to say that to develop the teamwork plan is so important, especially when you involve so many different professionals. But again, let me share with you some ideas on this teamwork plan. And again, this document, the draft of this plan, will be on the website, so you can download it. It's just as a start, but again, you can work around it and add other points to this document. So start with action mapping. What does it mean? Again, do you remember we were talking about we need to revisit objectives and to think participants, what we want participants to do, to be able to do, or change maybe their behavior or develop certain skills. So action mapping is excellent tool to start with. And then structuring the training, because when you revisited the objectives and you know what are the actions you're focusing on and what kind of activities will support these actions, then of course you structure the introduction, the activities, different interactions, exercises, and so on. Then the next point in this plan is finalization of PowerPoint presentation and any other training support materials that that you plan to have, and it's about main slide set and reception slides, visualization, animation if you have it, if you plan it, and finally the development of the session planner, the very useful document that actually my experience says that it's very helpful, especially in collaboration with subject matter experts, because here is the team, and the team, every member of the team needs to understand what is the scenario of this training. It's like a movie, like scenario for the movie. And let me show you this. And I, of course, it's very small text, and I don't expect you need to read everything which is written here. It's just an example of this working plan, which probably reminds you the simple Gantt plan, where you have the big tasks and the subtasks, and of course it shows what, who, when needs to do different pieces of this training development plan. with sequence, with resources, and of course with the controlling dates. So it's easy. It's really easy, but I came to this easy plan through some mistakes and trials. And again, it's very easy now when I have this picture in front of my eyes. So start to understand each other, speak to each other, guide your training experts, colleagues with important requirements, rules, and guidelines, and plan your work. So this is actually easy. It looks very easy, but it's really effective. And I'm happy that I had the experience and some mistakes were made, that now I have really very clear picture how to collaborate effectively with subject matter experts. And we are very close to the end of my presentation. And again, before I will do some wrap up, some ideas or additional comments from our honored guest today.
Haseeb, you're the honored guest.
Okay, Graham, I'll wait.
Okay, I can go. I guess briefly. I mean, I think you covered a lot in that section, Elena. I guess just one. I mean, you referred to kind of visual standards and content and the kind of the best practices around developing PowerPoint slides. I think largely I agree with that. I mean, definitely in terms of not having like too much information on slides. I would say that sometimes I think there needs to be a little bit of balance. I think in some cases you can see a content slide and a lot of substance has been taken out of that slide. So I think you need to just balance kind of good online visual standards versus kind of appropriate level of content. And I think a number of our participants, for example, also want to kind of have like toolkits or resources or other takeaway materials. And I think the PowerPoint deck itself can be one of those takeaway materials. So sometimes if you take too much out, like that PowerPoint deck is not really useful as a takeaway material. I would absolutely agree on everything you said relating to process being very important, to have a clear process and kind of clear roles and responsibilities in the team. I'd also agree. I think the session plan was a very kind of important addition, and I think not just for the expert and instructional designer, but also for the other stakeholders. So that the person supporting you or the WebEx host knows what's going on when, and can support the expert seamlessly. Also for the also for the business. And I think in general, the addition of this session plan, kind of gives everybody confidence in terms of the handling of and delivery of the session.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you for your comment. Yes, and I personally love this document really, and I found it very helpful. Okay, so I think it's time to wrap up. And so today's discussion points. So we discussed the challenges in collaboration with subject matter experts. We also discussed their challenges, and I think it was very important. And thank you, Haseeb, again for your input here. We discussed some typical mistakes and mistaken approaches to the training development. And now I think everybody knows 4-step plan of creating effective teamwork with content experts. And the last thing that I would like you to have, I found that this topic about how to work with subject matter experts pretty hot now. There's a lot of discussions in the internet. So I found some interesting articles about that, and now Anna will put these links in the chat, and you can copy them. And well, if you're still interested in this topic, you can read these discussions. So I think that with this, I only can wish you well. First of all, thank you very much for your participation and your comments and opinions, and just can wish you keep moving and never lose your balance. And well, as a last point before we come to the questions and answers part, I would like really to give me your feedback, maybe something you take away from today's webinar, some idea, some maybe useful tip, or something that you found useful for your future work in collaboration with content experts, or if you are content experts in collaboration with instructional designers. And thank you very much for all your kind words that now I'm reading in the chat box. And thank you for your evaluation. But if you can write something just for fun, I always like to use the whiteboard. I think it's very cool to type on the whiteboard.
So, Elena, while everybody's using the chat, can I just convey a couple thoughts following up on what we've discussed so far? So, Graham is a program manager. I can see that. And one of the things is having all stakeholders on the same page, and there are conflicting sorts of objectives sometimes. And coming to this sort of mode of training online, SMEs end up yielding most of the time to what is being advised because this is new territory for them. But in general, if SME is the one delivering the training, remember all the evaluations and all the effectiveness, etc., of that training is measured by the SME's performance during those sessions. So there is that sense of ownership, which will make them somewhat resistant sometimes when it cannot be expressed adequately what the benefit of doing things a certain way is. Having things like the planner, etc., that is very, very absolutely useful and necessary. And then on how to simplify the messages, etc., I think Graham hit it on the head with hit the nail on the head with this aspect that you worry that what you're conveying on paper is not sufficient as a sort of a reminder of what was taught if you're talking to it more. So those are things, please keep in mind, we're talking about challenges in working with SMEs. I'm trying to highlight those so some of those issues also. And one last thing, there are multiple stakeholders. There's the management of the people who are asking these attendees to take the class. There's the program management people, there are the content experts, and then there are the presentation experts. So it is sort of a give and take scenario. And I think in your case, I will just end on this note that you're extremely patient. I mean, I saw you deal with a lot. And I think that's a skill that I would advise everybody on this panel and on this forum to be more mindful of. If you're patient and you keep listening, be persistent by all means, but be attentive. You will end up winning the SME and maybe program managers over. So that's just a concluding thought there.
Thank you very much. Indeed, the patience is a very important skill. And actually, my participants, my learners taught me to be more patient. And I found it's very helpful quality. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, so thank you again. Thank you very much for your participation. Let's stay in touch, and maybe the next time we will discuss how to work with content experts when it comes to delivery of the online training. sessions, because there is another world that really worth to discuss. So I think we can stop on that and come to the, I don't know, maybe there are some questions that we can address. And I offer, Anna, the floor to you, because you are the host, and please manage us now.
Yes, so now that we have come to the questions, to the Q&A session, if you would like to raise a question or maybe make a comment, please raise your hand and we will unmute you on our side. And I think you will probably have to unmute yourself on your side as well. So if you have any additional feedback or if you have questions for our presenter or the panel, please raise your hand.
Yes, while people are thinking, I just want to make another comment. You know, it's so useful for me to hear and to know your comments and whether you agree or disagree, because sometimes I'm thinking maybe it's only my issue. Maybe I have these, you know, these challenges, and but it's very helpful. And well, by the way, using this opportunity just to want to thank you, Anna, and whoever is Mark, and whoever is contributing to these monthly webinars. It's really very helpful for us, for our professional development.
Thanks, Elena. Elena, we have some raised hands, and you are still the host. So, do you think you can try to unmute? So, Vijay would like to say something. Raiden would like to say something. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'd like to just ask a question to Elena and to Graham. You mentioned about the best practices for the instructional design. I got some good information and ways and means of doing certain things. But what are the real best practices going on for online learning? Can anyone elaborate on that? How do you define best practices?
Well, if I understand you, if I understood you correctly, you're asking about the best practices for online learning.
Design.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we can have another webinar about that. You know, this is very broad, broad subject. But what comes to my mind immediately? Well, first of all, you should understand the differences in between face-to-face and online. That many things are not working for online, and there are certain requirements for timing, for interactions, and of course, probably one of the best practice I can recommend is learn about how to interact online, because you know you don't see people's faces, you don't see them, and it looks like it's difficult, but then when you learn the interaction tools, it's actually not so difficult. And of course, the technicalities of the platform, you should know excellent in an excellent way the functions of the platform that you are going to use. So, but again, it's very broad discussion. We can have another webinar.
Maybe just if I could just add, Elena. I mean, just to say that there's a number of other resources on the growlearnconnect.org platform. So I'd encourage you to take a look at that. There's some other webinars that have taken place that kind of touch on best practices for kind of online learning. And there's also kind of courses and certification relating to online learning. So, for example, we have a cadre of trainers in Asia currently that are kind of taking a facilitating learning online training course. So all of this. So there's a lot of resources on the growlearnconnect.org platform relating to this that you might want to refer to. And the link is in the chat box. Thank you, Anna.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Well, the best way to learn best practice is just to learn, to go through the training. If you can take training for online facilitators, this is the best way.
Elena, I think Raiden also had a question. He has his hand raised.
Hi there. Sorry. Thank you. My thanks to the panel for this. This was very interesting and very helpful. I have potentially another topic for another seminar, perhaps, but I'm curious about analytics and how analytics can be used to feed back into event design or learning design, as our events are typically series or things that we repeat annually. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what analytics we should be sort of trying to capture and best ways to actually leverage those into convincing SMEs to change their approaches, perhaps. Thank you.
Well, I'm not sure I understood your question. What do you mean by analytics? How to use analytics in instructional design? But the second part of your question, how we can be more convincing with the subject matter experts. Well, just again, I only can repeat, understand them and talk to them. And also, if you have support from the stakeholders and from the authorized people who can make the final decisions, and you have authority, that it makes a big difference. So it's just not about asking subject matter experts to do something. It's not they're just simple desire. This is requirements. It's something like you have to follow as you are following like traffic rules, for example. So it should not be even discussed. But again, we need to understand their challenges. So because it's not easy for them.
Yeah. So I guess what I meant by analytics were evaluations that we conduct post-event.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Are there certain things that we should be looking for in those evaluations that we can use, to leverage to convince SMEs that the approach that we took was proper, or that the next time we should take a different approach? See what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. That's great idea to use analytics. Yeah. Unfortunately, you have to, sometimes it's too late, to use analytics after the event is done already. So, but to learn from some others' practices and mistakes, if you will, yes, absolutely. That's why we are discussing this now.
And Elena, just to add again, yes. I'd also direct everybody to the growlearnconnect.org platform. One of the kind of tools on there, which is just the public good, is the guide to training. The guide to training has a lot of in-depth kind of discussion and conveying of best practices around different aspects of the competency wheel. So delivering kind of a good like learning or performance improvement project. And there's specific sections there on the effective supporting the transfer of learning and in evaluating learning. So there may be some good kind of lessons or resources in the guide to training that I would refer you to as well.
Fantastic. Thank you, Graham.
Yeah, thank you, Graham, for editing.
And Anna's put it in the chat already. Thank you.
All right. It looks like we don't have any more questions, so probably it's time to wrap up.
There was a couple of, I don't know, there was a couple of other people in the chat that had said that they were trying to comment, but I think maybe fine.
Sorry, if someone would like to say something, and we have just 1 minute, so please raise your hand and we will unmute you. If we don't have time today, then please feel free to email your questions to me, and I will make sure to direct them to Elena, and we will respond in writing to any pending questions. Okay?
Yes, absolutely.
I see that Mayar has a question or a comment. Mark, would you please unmute? Thank you. I guess that's a mistake. In any case, so I would like to thank everyone. I would like to thank Hasib, Graham, of course, Elena, and all the participants for making this discussion very helpful and thought-provoking, as many of you have noticed. So we have posted handouts as well as supplemental reading materials on the webinar page, and please make sure to check out that page. And if you have any more questions, please direct them to us. We would also be very grateful for your feedback, and I have provided the link to SurveyMonkey in chat. So please let us know how we did this time and propose any new topics for our future webinars. So thank you all very much. Have a good night and enjoy your day.